Hello everyone, welcome back again to Spiritual Growth Tarot and Astrology. I'm Denise, and of course this will be, as you can see in the title, or when I get there it'll be in the title. This is Trump's new astrology chart that I discovered. I discovered that his birth time has not been correct, was not ever correct on his birth certificate. I found this amazing astrologer who's been doing astrology for almost 60 years. He says that he's having his third Saturn return. Oh goodness, so he's almost 90, or he might be 90, I didn't ask. But anyway, he has created a rectification program, which, so it's an astrological program. If you're an astrologer, you can buy it. And I'll link all of his information below in the description box. But bottom line is, when you put all the important dates that Trump went through during his life into this program, it comes out with a different birth time. So I'll show you everything in the chart that is different. It's not the aspects between the planets, but the house setup is different, and the 4 hot points in the chart are different, which is huge. So it changes the transits of his health and his professional future as well. So anyway, I'm so excited to show you guys this. Let me bring the camera down from overhead and get this going. Okay, hold on. Okay, so I'm realizing I forgot to mention the gentleman's name. So here, sorry about the glare of, you can see my camera up there, but this is the gentleman, this is the astrologer, Alphee Lavoie, who rectified, he created the software that, rectifies any chart. So there's his website. I found him on Facebook, but I wanted to show you that before I got started. And of course, like I said, I'll link all his information below. But so I wanted to show you first the old chart, the unrectified chart, which never made sense to me. But if you go to astro.com, it has a Lois Rodden, AA rating as, the birth record, birth chart in hand. But, when you're dealing with a born psychopath who's been mobbed up since birth, of course they create false IDs, they can falsify any document. They have those connections. So that's why we have the 10:54 a.m., of course. And it's never made sense to me to have Mars in the 12th, but I thought, it's close enough to the ascendant, maybe, Leo still being the ascendant would be, the ruler of, the sun would be the ruler of his chart. So that, I thought, okay, I'll go with it. But I'm so glad that I found Alphee. Otherwise, it changes things. So the ascendant goes from 29 degrees to 21. I'll show you that chart next. And so all the aspects are the same. It's just that the house placements are different. And it shifts the sun conjunct the North Node in Uranus from the 10th, pushes things more towards the 11th. Now, these planets in the 11th kind of made sense to me as well, but when you look at Saturn and Venus and Pluto in the 12th and take it to the dark side, which is where he lives, it's going to really make sense when I get to that chart. But so I'll just go ahead and go to that chart. But I just wanted to show you this one first because it changes the hot points. So it's not 29, it's 21. It changes the midheaven. It changes a lot. And the houses are the areas in our lives. So let's look at the rectified chart. Okay. So 21 degrees is the ascendant. Mars is now in the first house, which now it makes sense to me. Of course, right? The bloviating bag of hot air that he is. If you're a Trump fan, you've probably tuned out by now. And I mean no judgment or harm to anyone. I'm just speaking from my experience of observing him all these years because I'm not that much younger than him. So I've witnessed him since, I don't know, the 80s, I guess. Yeah, early 80s. So anyway, you can see now things are out of the 10th house of trying to find a person's. When someone comes in with the 10th house, with a lot of planets in the 10th house, they are still on the path of trying to find their position in the world, and doesn't mean that they haven't had it in the past, but they're still working that through. With him having his sun in this chart in the 11th and the North Node, now Uranus is still there in the 10th to shake up his position. Uranus disrupts. It can shock. It's not a happy place to be. It can wake you up, but it's also the planet of like deviating away from what is good for humanity. And it can detach us from what's good for ourselves and humanity, because of course we're all one, we're all connected. So Uranus can be like a reversal of fortune, and you can see that it's opposing his south node and his moon. Well, the moon to me is the public, and it's besides his emotional body and situation. Conjunct the south node in Sag tells me that he's had lifetimes and lifetimes of trying to come into truth, or the need to be in truth, get into truth, and he hasn't. Oh my goodness, what did they? I think they clocked him at like 30,000 lies while he was president, and we know that his whole MO now is this stop the steal. Well, no one stole it from him. No one stole the presidency from him. He lost. And he's used the stop the steal, of course, as a means to grift. So I'm not going to go into all of those details because you guys already know them. All of my other readings on him still stand, except for the areas of life that will be affected. So this, you can see in the old chart, his south node, so a past life point in the moon would be his family and public reputation, was in the 4th house of home, family. That never made sense to me either. The 5th house being the house of, if you look at it it's a house of pleasure, but it's also a person's children, and especially their first child, which was Don Jr. It's a house of creating, your reality. But if you just think about it, it's also the house of entertainment and sports and games and hobbies and gambling and financial speculation and love affairs, things like that. And we know what his life has been like. This is our house of, in his terms, would be the house of, his casino that he had, or I think he had more than one, that went bankrupt. And he had, I don't have that file close by, but there was, I had a document from FinCEN that showed the, all the fines that happened for him when he was a part of, when he had his Taj Mahal, whatever, in Atlantic City. But of course, that was only there as a money laundering institution for him. And that's what we have going on here. So this chart makes so much more sense to me, because the 11th house, where his sun is here, with his Leo ascendant, since the sun rules Leo, the sun rules his chart, and you go to, where's his sun? Well, it's in the 11th house in this chart. Conjunctus North Node still, this stellium here in Gemini is still the same. It's just that it's moved into the 11th house. Now, if we look at the dark side of the 11th house, we're in that realm of, it says hopes and wishes, but it's also social media, being recognized. It's everything to do with, in the light, it would be like humanitarian endeavors, but in his situation, it's more clannish. It's a group. This is his mobbed up situation that he's always had. Doesn't that make more sense in the 11th than in the 10th? Because it's a house of groups. The 10th would just be like his own, this would be Trump Organization International. But to have his sun in the 11th, This brings in more of a worldwide type of a situation. And it also describes the types of people that he chooses to hang out with and the organizations that he belongs to. And, you know, the like rules around these, you know, this type of society that he belongs to. Well, the rules are, in his world, is just basically, I'm the boss and you have to be loyal to me or you're out of my circle of trust, whatever. If you want to remember one of the, what was that, Meet the Parents? The Fockers. Robert De Niro. Remember that movie? That was hilarious. But anyway, so even though the 10th house can be the house of authority and how we participate with society in our authority, to have Uranus there, it upsets that. It takes away his authority at some point after enough abuse. And with the 11th house, you know, it's like, okay, what's his new goal? What the sun is always going to be shining a spotlight as to what his new goals are and who he is affiliated with, you know. And basically it can be the house of rebellion too, right? Yeah. Because this house is ruled by Uranus, and of course Uranus is here. So this is him and his, you know, attempted coup. And this is him thinking that everyone else is stupid and they can just pay him all the money he wants because he's the top dog type of a thing. And, yeah. Neptune in the second is not so good for money. And especially with this square up here to Mercury, this is his... now, I would never say this about anyone else or try to glom everyone into a Mercury square Neptune situation, because we're talking a whole generation of people. But for him, it turns into deceit with his words and control, in controlling relationships through his lies. But I would never say that about anybody that has Mercury square Neptune in their charts. Don't take that on, because it's pretty much just, you know, some people, but not all. You just can't say that. So I think rather than doing so much on the aspects, and otherwise I'll be here too long, and I have these two charts here that I want to show you about, you know, with his transits. I'm just going to talk about the difference between the house setup. Because when I bring in these other charts, it brings in more complication, and I want to get this established first. So instead of having, you'll see in the other chart, Saturn and Venus, the money planets, in the 11th, they're now in the 12th. So the dark side of the 12th is hidden. It's being bound by some dark force. It's, you know, secrets and then hiding. And it can be, you know, major limitations with Saturn there and with Venus, the relationships that are bound by his control. And then to have Pluto representing his soul in the 12th house. This is, you know, I always say whenever, I don't always, but often say, whenever you have Pluto in the 12th, you're either dealing with somebody who's either close to sainthood or already sainted, you know, by their own actions in the past to clear everything out, or they're a psychopath. Pluto in the 12th house here, even in the other chart, Pluto in the 12th house here. Like, you know, if he was working with an astrologer to try to figure out the right birth time, he would have picked a better setup. But obviously he either was working with an idiot astrologer or not with one at all. And maybe I don't know, maybe it was easier to change the 1054 to a 1012. I don't know why they did it that way. Hold on, I need to grab some water. Okay, so back to the 12th house. So we're dealing with endings. We're dealing with misfortune. We're dealing with everything that has to do with his unconscious and subconscious and everything that's hidden within him. I think, was Mussolini in his last lifetime, and then way, way back, Caligula before that. So you can see this family dynamic here. And karma, Saturn, karmic in Cancer situations, karmic family situations, but tied together by money. And it's a repeat in this lifetime. And then with the inconjunct down here, of course, to the moon, representing family, they were all in it together. So this mobbed up family that he incarnated into in this lifetime probably represents or correlates pretty tightly with his last situation and prior to that. So anyway, the differences here is, so you can see we no longer have the stellium in the second house of money. Instead, it's in the third. It's broken up between the second and the third. So Neptune in the second is his delusions around what real wealth is, and his delusions around relationship, the ability to relate to others. They're all there to just manipulate for him, And then Jupiter conjunct Jupiter conjunct Chiron in Libra. In the third house of the mind, there's his dementia that's been happening. Dementia and probably early Alzheimer's coming in. And also this deep relationship wounding and betrayal, which is the realm you're in when you're a dirty dirtbag like him. That's just, you look at his past and the things that he's done and what he's doing now, even what he's just done in the last 5 years, and all the things from the past is coming forward for us to see. Or all the things of the past are coming forward for us to see. And you don't have Chiron conjunct Jupiter in the sign of Libra without having deep relationship wounding and issues. Also, Libra is the sign of fairness and equality and justice. And so there's wounding there. He's wounding and trauma that he's projecting outward and further, exacerbate, or what's the word, creating more. It's blowing it up with exacerbating the issue with Jupiter there. Jupiter blows things up. This is him where he will always blame somebody else for his problems, and he will turn himself into the victim, but the powerful victim that's going to overcome, it's like, no, he's not. I think the past has caught up with him. And so all of this in the 12th house, oh my goodness, this is the house of prisons, jails, sanitariums, mental institutions, rest homes if you're a nice guy, but not him. It's even our house of detention camps. And what did he do while he was president? Took all those kids away from their parents and locked the parents up and took the kids away. What happened to those kids? Did they get sold into slavery? Where are those kids? We're still wondering. That's a major misuse of Saturn in Cancer. But conjunct Venus, I'm sure he made some money off of it. I'm sure he gets a piece of everything. So anyway, affairs, hidden affairs. I mean, I'm sure Stormy Daniels wasn't the only one. And Eugene Carroll with his, rape. That's Mars in the first. Mars is, in this chart, his old chart in the 12th, hidden motivations. Yeah, I could buy that. But Mars in the 12th is usually somebody who doesn't act out, so strongly. Mars in the first changes everything, because the first house is what you really, really want. And it's the aura of your body, here. It's like, I'm here. Well, he's here with something to say, and he's always saying it, always doing it. Can't sit still. The first house has everything to do with a person's, their health usually, because the aura is coming through. Well, in Leo, I think he probably won't, runs way too hot, and he's probably going to stroke out someday. Always wants to win. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I don't feel like going into it too much more here. And his chart's all just so one-sided, right? I mean, there's nothing here in the house of service or relating or transformation. It's all pretty much over here as me. I've got this clan that protects me. I'm the mob boss, and I get to create what I want, and it's all about me over here. If your chart is lopsided like this, please don't take this personally. Please don't. Okay, so I have 2 transit charts here. So this is today, and you'll see the moon is in Gemini. I'm sorry, the moon is in Taurus. Mars is in Gemini. So Mars is moving across his Uranus, bringing in information. Just the facts are coming through. But he had that little powwow on the golf course with no golf clubs and nothing in the cart, and then talking to his 8 other cronies, which I could see John Eastman was in there, and I could see Eric, but I couldn't tell who the other guys were. They all had their backs to they were kind of sideways, and of course they all had hats on, because it was really hard to figure out who was who. One guy kind of looked like maybe a little thinner version of oh God, what's that guy? Henry Weinstein, whatever, but I think he's locked up, isn't he? Or did he die? Did he die? Oh God, I can't keep track. Anyway, looked kind of like him from the back, but I know it wasn't him. So anyhow, with the transiting Uranus, so before I was saying because of the house setup, this puts it at 21 degrees, so things are happening sooner. And I thought that Uranus through the 9th would give him tons of legal problems. Well, that happened. It takes 7 years for Uranus to get through one house. And that has been happening. His legal issues have been ramping up over the last 7 years or more. But now with Uranus at 18 degrees and the North Node, the nodes transiting through there, through South Node's at here's a past life point, here's a karmic point here, and the past is catching up with him, and it's headed in the direction of his, public persona, 10th house, career, worldly affairs, his profession, things like that, his business life, what he's recognized for, basically. It's also the house of government and authorities in general. So there's that. So Uranus is there to shake it up. He did have the legal issues that's still happening. It's going to really happen more intensely because Uranus is retrograding back this way. I think it'll get to 14 before it stations direct, and then it'll go this way. And now the nodes move backwards. So the North Node's going to start going into his house of legal affairs, 9th house. And the South Node will start going into his 3rd house of his brain, probably imploding. Anyway, but so when he was back to the moon, when he was on the golf course, the moon was conjunct Uranus. That was happening. The moon was crossing over through here. The moon was illuminating, going through the 9th house, illuminating all of his, legal issues and, travel, things like that's in the 9th house. His, basically legal issues with his Truth Social, tanking, because this is the house of publishing, and all kinds of books coming out about him too when Uranus was there. So many books were written about him when Uranus was in his 9th house. It was a really important transit for him. It takes 84 years for Uranus to get around the chart. So, and you can see, he was born with it in the 10th, and he's in his late 70s, so it's made one full, revolution, evolution, to speak more in Uranus terms, but movement through his chart, and it's now, so when he's 84, it'll be here, if he lives that long. It'll catch up to Uranus, right? But right now, Mars is there like, I don't think it's good for him. And when it conjuncts his North Node and Sun, it's going to move him into a different direction. I don't think he's going to like to go. If he's not there yet, it'll be a transit of him like verbal diarrhea. He won't be shutting up, which he never does anyway, but it'll be worse. So anyhow, especially when Mars hits his Mercury, oh my goodness. But now we can see that the moon, as of today, is crossed over Uranus, illuminating us as to his past and what has actually happened, what he's actually done, and we know. And it's going to continue on in Taurus, and then at some point it'll hit Uranus, and we'll get some more. He'll get some more soul shocks coming through there. The public is ruled by the moon, or the moon rules the public. So there's public. It'll be some public illumination that will be shocking for him, I predict, over the next several days, and a few days. And let's see what else. Yeah, you can see how the moon is going to continue to go through the 11th, is 12th, and it's going to keep going around and around. But for today, I think I'll switch to the other chart, because the other planets are so slow moving that they're still in the same. Yeah, well, Venus is in his first today, or has been in his first for quite some time, but it's soon to move into his second. I can see because I have the other chart right here. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and switch. Venus in the first is more, well, I'll just bring it this way. Venus in the first is more about, he's probably beating himself up with Venus and Virgo, which, he needs to have some self-recognition that way. So, September 22nd, the Thursday, right before the sun moves into, because I think it's about 9:30. Do I have, oh no, those charts are in my kitchen. I just did that other reading. But anyway, the sun's moving into 0 degrees Libra. So right now you can see it's at 29 degrees. The signs go from 0 to 29 degrees. There's no 30 degrees, but there are 30 degrees. It's 0 to 29. So the next little which would be in 1 minute, would be 0 degrees Libra. So right before Libra season, which is all about balance and fairness and justice and equality, partnerships, making decisions, people being sick of encountering injustice, and people sick of not being treated fairly and equally. All that's coming to fruition for him. And now let's look at, see how Saturn has been in this T-square. I don't know if you guys have been following my weekly videos, but I've been talking about this for quite a long time, that Saturn has been squaring the nodes. And you can see 14, 14, 19, Saturn's retrograde. They've been squaring the nodes for, oh my goodness, for months. And it's not going to clear until the T-square, Saturn here. So Saturn is government. Saturn is the man. Saturn's rules, laws, regulations. And in Aquarius, it's about rules for, social, societal structures, humanity. And the nodes, so the South Node is the past, the North Node is the future. He's had the past going through his, because remember the nodes go backwards, going through his 4th house of home, family, breakup, problems that way, betrayals that way, because crisis that way, because that would be the negative side of Scorpio. Remember, he's a born psychopath. We would read almost everything in the negative, even though I always hold everyone as a particle of the divine, at least a particle, but he has just so much shrouding over his spirit that his soul is so shrouded, his spirit can't shine through. I don't know how many lifetimes and how much work he's going to have to do to get out of this one, and he has so much blood on his soul from other people's blood on his soul. So the important thing is to notice that this is a long-term transit going on for him, with Uranus up here leading the way to break through, to help him break through, and I believe he needs to go through some public humiliation, whether or not he would ever admit it, because psychopaths don't, it's all the big lie. It's so ironic. He's probably going to go out being known as for the guy that, is all about the big lie, when all he's done all his life is just lie. So I guess that was one of his coping strategies as a little one, and it's never left him. Lie, deny, defy, grift, make money off of the lies. I mean, my goodness, people died because of that. So this pattern here is not going to shift for him, or for any of us, actually. This is our challenge to the government, to get some new rules in place and enforce those laws, get some new laws written and in place and enforced, so that nothing like this can ever happen again. But this square is not going to get out of orb until November 16th. And the Saturn retrograde, it won't get out of orb until October 23rd, or won't go direct until October 23rd. So he still has some time with that. And notice that the transiting, so if we would have gone with his old chart, see Pluto's here at 26 degrees. With his old chart, Pluto would still be in his 5th house. And that doesn't make sense, because we know his health is failing. The 6th house is health, service, usefulness, scheduling, details, routines, trying to make order out of chaos, things like that. Everything that rules Virgo. But it's also, mainly, I just want to say, it's his own capacity for being able to work effectively. And it's his everything to do with his diet and his nutrition and his health. It's the house of sickness and disease. And with Pluto there, it's going to take him down, because Pluto destroys. And you go kicking and screaming, or you go lightly and getting your lessons. Well, he's going to go kicking and screaming, because that's what he does. This is going to bury him. It's been bringing things to light, and because look, 22 degrees is the house cusp, and Pluto's at 26, and it's only when it retrogrades back, I don't think it only goes to 26. Yeah, Pluto, when it goes direct, that'll be the first week in October. It'll still be at 26 degrees. That's how slow it moves. And it's going to stay. And I mean, he'll die with Pluto in his 6th house. That's just how it's going to go for him, because it started out here, right? So he's already had Pluto opposite Pluto, because his natal Pluto's at 10 degrees. And oh no, I'm sorry. He would have to have his Pluto opposition. He would have to get to Pluto in Aquarius at 10 degrees Aquarius, and that's not going to happen for years and years and years. Pluto's not even going to stay into. I looked that up earlier. Pluto's not even going to stay into Aquarius for good until November of 2024. So Pluto's going to be staying here. It's not even going to make it to Saturn. Will be moving into a 7th house, so there's going to be limitations on his relationships, because they're all going to be turning on him to save their own asses, And Pluto's going to just sit here and work to destroy him, because, you know, that's what our spirits will do. Our spirits will take us out rather than cause any more destruction. The spirit will not let spiritual destruction happen to itself. Now the body, that's a whole nother thing. And the soul, that's a whole nother thing, because that can be transformed. But the essence of the spirit will not allow itself to be destroyed. So it will destroy its body, the soul, body, self, before it gets close to that point. And that's coming up. You can see it. So relationship issues, health issues. You can see Neptune has been up here in his 8th house of other people's resources, and it's been dissolving anybody's resources with him and for himself. This is him playing the victim, the violin, victimhood thing with other people to get to the grift. So this is partly the grift off of his people here. And with Jupiter there, that's exactly what happened. I predict I don't know when, I'd have to get some dates, but when Jupiter moves into, well, Chiron's already there. So when Jupiter moves into the 9th house, there's going to be an expansion of legal issues for him, because the 9th house is courts of law. And let's look at, let's see, Venus, the Sun, and Mercury are all going to move on, and they move pretty quickly, but we can see now that there's an examination with the Sun in Virgo, Venus in Virgo, an examination into his, don't look at this, just focus on these, into his personal assets. This is, this would be the tax returns being turned over to the House and Ways Means Committee. Right? And now, with Mercury inching ever so closely up to, and it's already conjunct to his Neptune, there's messages, because Mercury's the messenger, that will show the injustice. It's retrograde by the 22nd, it'll be retrograde to 0, and it's going back. So this Mercury retrograde is going to stay the whole time in his 2nd house. So Mercury's basically going on Neptune, and Neptune is showing his delusions and his all of his falsities, all of his nastiness, all of his numbness, all of his ability to enchant others, all of his confusions, his distortions. It's like just put a big fat black cloud here in his house of money and personal resources, personal assets. His personal assets have always been clouded under a dark veil that is connected to relationships of that same nature. And with Jupiter transiting Jupiter, opposing Neptune, that's blowing that up, and there's going to be a confrontation between that. Other people's assets that they don't want to lose anymore because of him, that will be blowing up even more than it is right now. So now let's look at the moon. So by the 22nd, the moon is conjunct his Mars. He's going to be blowing up. He's going to be the illumination as to what people want and what he wants, which are in great conflict with everybody by this point. He's going to be having some trouble, major problems. So health issues, relationship issues, money issues, issues from the past, career issues, and then emotional issues. So hold on to your hats with that. And I haven't even looked at aspects other than the conjunctions. With the squares, let's see. 26 to 26 here. Pluto from this Leo to Capricorn here. Pluto square Mars. Pluto squaring his natal Mars. Wow. Yeah, That'll do it. So health issues, because he's not getting what he wants anymore. But and the demand, that constant demand for attention, the public, the moon, public, is going to be, it'll be on display. This moon at 26 degrees Leo will activate the square to Pluto. So on the 22nd, he's going to have natally moon conjunct Mars square Pluto. So Mars always wants something. In Leo, for him, it has to be attention. Basically, give it to me, right? And then we're going to all be seeing that, and his soul is not going to like that. And, you know, he needs to go through this 12th house, Pluto in the 12th house, that is definitely an aspect of humiliation. He needs to go through that in order to heal. He needs to do a lot in order to heal. And his whole family is tied in there. Although I do see, not that I'm giving her any type of credit, but I have seen in all of my readings Ivanka just walking away and done. Jared, I don't know, but Ivanka, yeah. Jared will do anything for money. Ivanka has had it with him. Let's see, anything else? Mercury conjunct Neptune is not good at all for the mind. This is major delusions of the mind, and especially deluded about relationships, and deluded about what the justice system of our country can actually do to him. Yeah, we don't hang or execute anybody anymore, but... Or did we ever? I mean, wasn't that why we left? There's no off with your head in America. Even though he would do it in a heartbeat. But no, it's going to be lock him up. But I don't know that his health will get him through that. I don't think his health and his mind... Now, he may very well deceive and plead insanity to get out from under these transits. And he, you know, but still, he'll be ineffective. But we may not see the justice for... we may not see the justice we want for this guy. But you have to trust spiritual law in that... He'll get it. He'll get what's coming to him until he clears this out of his soul and makes amends. Yeah. Now Neptune is up here trining. There's Neptune and a trine to Saturn and Venus. This has been helping him with the grift. That's the grift aspect there for him. But yeah, so after a while though, his people, all these little small $5 a week or month or whatever they've been giving him, they're going to run out of money. They're going to stop doing it. He'll stop being able to collect it. And I think that he'll have all these, well, what I predict is coming down the pike for him is asset seizure and mental institution or house arrest type of thing with somebody on him 24/7. And he's just, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs kind of in the brain. And Mars conjunct Uranus here is definitely shaking everything up and energizing his nervous system in a way that isn't good for him at all. Yeah. So there's probably a lot more I could look at, but I don't feel like it. So, okay, I'm going to close this up for you and say goodbye. Take good care.